I've been sent a creepy story. If you are a scaredy cat, consider this your warning. Scroll away now. One night, quite some years ago, I was scrolling on Rightmove. Sometimes I scroll so fast I'm barely looking at the images. So it's a wonder how I saw this house at all. But I did, and it was perfect. The kind of house us women dream of. I didn't even know we were looking. I got so excited that I woke up my sleeping husband, who wasn't impressed. Much to my surprise, his eyes lit up when he saw this house. It's perfect. It is? Yeah, 4 bedrooms for that price. That's unheard of. He wasn't wrong. The house was very competitively priced. We booked a viewing for the very next day. A man came to the door who was not much older than myself. He explained how the house had once belonged to his nan, who was very stubborn in her old age and had refused any type of help around the house, which is exactly how the house had fallen into disrepair. His grandfather had been a very talented craftsman and had pretty much designed every aspect of the house, including every ceiling rose. His nan had adored that house, and she had fought her entire family about leaving it. In fact, the man who showed us around the house joked that his nan wouldn't have left that house kicking and screaming. Alive. Yeah, no, I can see where this is going. Our offer was accepted and everything moved very quickly. Our son, Jesse, who was 5 at the time when we moved in, was so excited to finally have his own playroom. However, Jesse, who had always been very good at independent play, upon moving in, developed a sudden anxiety. Jesse, why don't you go and play, darling? You're getting under Mummy's feet. I need to cook. I don't want to go back in the playroom. It's scary in there. What do you mean it's scary? Don't be silly. Don't like that woman that comes in there, Mum. She's not nice to me. She keeps telling me not to touch her stuff. I don't want to go back in that playroom. During the renovations, we'd had a lot of people in and out of the house. And to be honest, we'd had a workman whose voice was quite high-pitched. And I kind of assumed that maybe Jesse had just been confused. Maybe he'd mistaken one of the workmen for a woman. Children are always confusing things. However, as Jesse's 6th and 7th birthdays came and went, his fear of this woman who always stood with her back to him never went. I spent hours at the end of my son's bed as he cried, head under the blanket, scared to come out. We spent hundreds on therapists who told us that he would grow out of night terrors, that soon all the sleepless nights would become a distant memory. Around 5 years after moving into our dream home, my husband started to experience some trouble with his memory. He would walk into rooms and forget what he was doing. And at first it was a little bit of a joke. He'd always been a little bit of a forgetful man. But then I'd find him wandering in the garden at night time, and I started to realise that maybe there was something deeper than just a forgetful man or a sleepwalking. Dementia. That's what the doctors called it. Except this wasn't dementia that I'd ever seen before. It was cured as soon as we left our house for extended periods of time. We spent Christmas at my family's in Surrey, and for a whole week, his memory was fine. No sleepwalking. No sudden bursts of anger when he couldn't remember where he'd put his keys. So as he slept next to me, I started to scroll again. This time the house didn't need to be perfect, it just needed to be a house. Any house, I couldn't deny it anymore. The house wasn't perfect, it never had been. I just really wanted that house in a way that I couldn't explain. I was drawn to it. The longer I spent away from the house, the more I realised how much I hated it there. It was eerie and cold and unwelcoming, and my son was right. I do remember seeing a woman standing in the corner. I blocked it out because I wanted everything to be perfect. Once again, I woke my husband up from the sleep as he lay next to me. I stuck my phone in front of his face. It's perfect. It is? I'd move anywhere to be out of that house. How had we both been so desperately unhappy? It was like we just existed in some sort of weird dream where we hadn't communicated. And finally, this week away was exactly what we needed. All 3 of us felt alive, like a weight had finally been lifted. We got back to the house with some very strict plans in mind. We were going to pack and get ourselves out of there, pronto. I kissed my husband and my son goodnight and got to work on the packing. First I packed my son's things, then I made my way down the hallway to our bedroom and I started to pack my husband's. I dragged absolutely everything that I didn't need to the pond at the back of the house. I slowly dragged everything in and I watched it sink to the bottom. I was so glad to be rid of it all. Weeks passed and life started to feel like mine again. That was until one day the police came to the door. I was questioned for hours. Why did you do it? They were going to make me leave. Have to drag me kicking and screaming. Alive. Back in 2020, my boss walks into the room. Amanda, I've got a job for you. Amanda. My name's Amanda David. He's vertically challenged and obviously a little bit dense too. You know what I mean? You know that gaff up on Rigby. I think you'd really get on with the seller. Might really appreciate your area of expertise, do you know what I mean? What David is actually saying is, Amanda, please could you help me sell this house? I have PTSD from my ex-wife, who went batshit crazy during her menopause, as David so diligently put it. And now, David is deathly afraid of any woman who gets any kind of attitude at the first sniff of his incompetence. You mean you want me to take on the house that hasn't had a single viewing in 6 months? Because the seller's peed off at you? Yeah. Would you do it for me, Mand? She's really mad. So I agreed. I said yes. As annoying as it was to help him out, it's not like I could say no to the commission. First step, call the seller. I braced myself for a bollocking, to be honest. I've taken over a few of Divvy Dave's cases before, and usually I will spend the first half hour apologising for his behaviour. But not this lady. From what I could tell, she was alright. Softly spoken, well-mannered, sounds quite posh, and to be honest, quite a pleasure to deal with. She lets me know that the house used to belong to her nan. Awful woman by the sound of it. In fact, I assumed her distaste for her nan was making her want to sell this house dirt cheap. I've seen it before in divorce. People go one way or the other. Some want to dig their heels and get the best price. Others would swap your bobby pin just to be out of the house with those memories. I've seen some houses in some states before, but nothing compared to this. The only thing I can think to compare the smell of that house to was the time when my kid was in primary school and he left his packed lunch in the back of the car. It wasn't until his first day back after the summer holidays that I realised his lunchbox was missing. I'm surprised that ham sandwich didn't grow legs and run away. And if it did grow legs, I'm absolutely certain it would have run. The smell of it was putrid. I'm not one to get emotional, and I've certainly never cried over a house. But that old woman must have been a right piece of work. The house was trashed. Every room, piled high with rubbish. Apparently she'd refused every last bit of help. She'd quite literally let the house decay around her. My mind started to wonder about what else possibly could have been decaying in the house. I thought about the rotten ham, flesh. Every bit of sad that I'd felt, suddenly replaced by fear. I measured every room, by hand. I know what you're thinking. We don't do that anymore. We don't use hands. We don't do it that way. No electronics worked in that house. I thought it was a coincidence first time, but every subsequent visit, same again. Nothing would work. Come the winter months, it was a nightmare. Potential buyers practically ran out of those doors when the lights flickered on and off. I was ready to throw in the towel. And then it happened. Mans, there's someone on the phone. They want to put an offer in on the Rigby house. Really? We haven't had any viewings on that in a few months. What do you want me to do, not take it? DV Dave was right. The Harrisons? Apparently they'd done a viewing last Saturday. They must have got the date wrong or something, and apparently there was a member of family there. Miss Swan never mentioned her brother, but I guess it was him. Must have done a good job anyway, better than me, because they were very excited. Couldn't wait to move in. Either way, it suited me just fine. I was going to get a tidy little bit of commission, and I did feel like I deserved it. I can still smell that house now if I close my eyes. 6 weeks later, Miss Harrison is standing in front of me and I'm handing her the keys to her new house. Congratulations, I hope you'll be very happy in your new home. How old are you, sweetheart? Their son Jesse, who was 5 at the time, is the same age as my Zach. Turns out they would actually be in the same year at school, so I'd get to see a lot of Miss Harrison over the years. She didn't seem the type to me. Then I suppose Fred and Rose West didn't really look that weird at first. It's in the eyes. It's always in the eyes. And she did wear sunglasses quite a lot. 2024 comes around, Dave walks into the office. Man, do you know that house on Rigby? I already know what he's going to say. That house was hard enough to sell when it just smelt of rotten ham. Was this dense little man about to ask me to sell a house in which 3 bodies had just been pulled from a pond? What do you think, you up for it? They'd barely taken the crime scene tape down. 3 weeks. 3 weeks Miss Harrison lived in that house. After dragging her son and husband into the pond. After killing them. They hadn't even identified the body of the third person. Word on the curb was that it was the grandson of the nasty woman that used to live there. Miss Swan, the original seller of the house, the one that I'd spoken to, her little brother. No wonder she wanted that house sold. Come to think of it, it couldn't be, because wasn't her brother the one that showed them round the house in the first place? Do you know what I heard? I heard that her old man wanted to leave the house. He'd had enough. He didn't want to keep doing all the maintenance. Apparently, when she refused to leave, he said he was going to divorce her and the house was going to get sold from underneath her. She lost it, bruv. Went mental. She got rid of him, and then her grandkids see it, so she had to get rid of the grandkid as well. No, I know it, bruv. Yeah, someone at my school told me. Word on the curb all the way back then it was. Mental. And now it's happened again. It's either haunted or it's the menopause. They all go mental with that. It's menopause, David. Either way, No amount of commission was going to make me go back into that house. You'd literally have to drag me, kicking and screaming, or dead. That's the only way.